But everything that he said, it was the truth. You know, man, you didn't feel it like, oh, this dude is lying. Everything he said, it was truth. And one of the most genuine people you want to meet, man.
Were you ever in prison, though?
Nassau County Jail was as far as it went for me.
Right.
Charlie Murphy could have you laughing so hard your ribs hurt, but behind that wide smile was a past most people couldn't even imagine. He wasn't just Eddie Murphy's brother or some storyteller. Charlie was a survivor of New York's raw streets, a soldier in the King Python's gang, molded by poverty, heartbreak, and violence. When their father was killed, Charlie turned cold, carrying the weight of protecting Eddie all through high school, stacking scars from a world Hollywood had no clue he came from. And when that mask slipped, people finally realized Charlie Murphy wasn't just funny, he was dangerous and always had been. Let's break it down, the hidden side of a legend.
Did you like to fight?
I learned to like it. You know, when it's something that's gonna happen, it's inevitable. You know, it's part of the environment. It's either one way or the other to take it. Either you're gonna ball up into a fetal position or shrimp or whatever.
For most folks, Charlie first popped up on the map as pure comedy gold. They saw him on Chappelle's show, dropping stories that turned into instant classics. He was Eddie Murphy's big brother with that gravelly voice and razor-sharp punchlines that cut deep. He gave us those iconic Rick James and Prince skits, moments so unforgettable they stamped him permanently into comedy history. But the ones really watching knew Charlie wasn't just Eddie's funny brother. He was a writer, an actor, an artist carving out his own lane in Hollywood. But here's the twist. For every laugh Charlie gave the world, there was a darker side most never saw.
I think what I really think affected me the most was, you know, when I was 10 years old, my father was murdered.
Right.
Okay? And I didn't realize it, but I guess it had an effect on me. I became, you know, angry or whatever, you know.
A side carved by loss, by violence, and by the ruthless streets of Brooklyn and Long Island in the 1970s. Long before the fame, Charlie's name rang out in back alleys, in holding cells, and in the company of men who fought for their respect. Charlie even admitted his humor was born out of anger, and not just everyday anger, the kind of rage that comes from a childhood that was brutally unfair. Charlie was born Charles Quentin Murphy in 1959, right in Brooklyn's Bushwick neighborhood, and life hit him hard from the start. His parents split when he was just 5. Then, at only 10 years old, tragedy struck. His father, Charles Edward Murphy, a transit cop with dreams of becoming a stand-up comedian, was murdered.
I got rid of my gun because I was gonna solve a problem that was very simple, okay, with a gun, because I got emotional, I got angry, and at first, oh, you're gonna do to talk to me like that? I'm gonna solve it like this.
Charlie later admitted he didn't even process it right. He said he didn't cry enough. He just swallowed the pain and kept pushing forward. But that kind of loss at that kind of age doesn't fade away. It hardens you, and the pain didn't stop there. Not long after, his mother Lillian fell sick with tuberculosis and had to be hospitalized. That's when Charlie and Eddie were sent to foster care, and things got even worse. Charlie faced abuse from their foster mother while also carrying the weight of grief for his father and missing his mom. A boy already broken by loss was now forced to fight for himself and for Eddie. Charlie became the protector. If anyone even thought about messing with Eddie at school, they had to deal with Charlie first. He wasn't just a big brother, he was a shield. That responsibility, mixed with all the pain he was holding inside, shaped who Charlie was becoming. He was toughening up in real time.
Hey, he knew how to fight, for sure.
And he
knew martial arts, man.
He was big into it.
Then came another twist. After their father's death, the family moved to Roosevelt, Long Island. From the outside, it looked picture perfect. Picket fences, green lawns, the kind of suburb people thought was safe. But Charlie said it was all just a front. Behind those nice houses, Roosevelt in the 1970s was rough, violent, and unpredictable. For Charlie, already scarred by his father's murder and the hell of foster care, Roosevelt was just another battlefield, especially for kids who weren't born and bred there, like those coming from Brooklyn or the Bronx. Charlie walked straight into another war zone. When Charlie and his family landed in Roosevelt, it wasn't a warm welcome, it was a test. If you weren't ready to throw hands, you were gonna get hurt. Charlie said straight up, I was an outcast in Roosevelt because I was from Brooklyn, but he wasn't the type to fold. He carved out his spot by linking with other outsiders just like him.
banded together because that year, for some reason, there was a lot of people, like a mass migration of people from the city moving out to the island.
Right.
So we all became a crew.
These kids, all relocated to Long Island, built their own crew. They called themselves the King Pythons, a name that screamed survival. Rolling with the King Pythons meant you weren't walking alone. You had protection, you had backup, and Charlie didn't just blend in, he rose fast. They called him Little Boss, a nickname that carried weight. He wasn't the biggest or the loudest, but the way he carried himself made people listen. And in Roosevelt, respect was everything. Being a King Python wasn't just a title, it was a daily fight. You had to prove yourself day in and day out. That meant scraps after school, holding down your block, and sometimes stepping into situations that could have turned deadly. Roosevelt was crawling with different crews, and when those crews clashed, you had to answer back. No backing down. Charlie learned that early. One story he shared says it all. Back in 9th grade, a classmate put a pistol to his forehead and pulled the trigger. The gun jammed. That split-second misfire was the only reason Charlie walked away alive. And the crazy part? Moments like that weren't even rare. They were part of everyday life. Living like that changes you. It sharpens you, makes you cautious, but also fearless. Once you've stared death in the face, you move differently forever. That edge stuck with Charlie for life.
I think what I really think affected me the most was, when I was 10 years old, my father was murdered.
Right.
Okay? And I didn't realize it, but I guess it had an effect on me. I became,
Angry.
Angry or whatever, yeah.
Even Eddie admitted in interviews that nobody dared mess with him at school because everybody knew who his big brother was. Eddie said it plain. Charlie was in gangs. Charlie wasn't just tough, he was dangerous with skill. It went way beyond street brawls. He trained in martial arts, grinding his way up to a black belt in karate, and the people around him backed it up. Fellow comedians like Donald Rawlings said straight out, Charlie knew how to fight for real. He wasn't just swinging fists, he had techniques sharp enough to school UFC fighters. That mix of raw grit and trained discipline made him even more intimidating. But toughness doesn't erase consequences. Rolling with the King Pythons dragged Charlie into choices that left scars he couldn't shake. One of those choices, an armed robbery.
And you could tell when he was growing up, he was the guy that always had the center of attention.
Yeah.
You could just tell that.
Yeah, you could tell. He knows how to hold a story.
He and some of his crew held up a taxi driver at gunpoint. Charlie got caught and was slapped with 3 years probation. For most people, that would have been the wake-up call, but not Charlie. The street still had a hold on him. While on probation, he picked up more charges: larceny, loitering, petty crimes. But petty crimes pile up fast when you're already on thin ice. The judge finally had enough. Charlie was sentenced to 10 months in Nassau County Jail. He later admitted he was just a knucklehead back then, moving reckless, never thinking about the fallout. Jail was the price. But even in the chaos, Charlie was searching for something deeper. For a while, he got involved with the 5 Percenters, also known as the Nation of Gods and Earths. He even took on the name Omar Allah. The movement gave him structure, identity, and a sense of belonging beyond the gang life. But Charlie wasn't the type to follow blindly. He studied, he asked questions, and when things didn't feel real to him, he walked away.
When he passed away, nobody said Eddie Murphy's brother died.
Right.
Everybody was like, Charlie Murphy passed away. So he had his true identity, and that was Charlie Murphy.
That choice showed a different side of his character. He wasn't afraid to step back, even from something powerful, if it didn't line up with his truth. Through it all, one thing stayed the same. Charlie was loyal to the core. Charlie's loyalty was unshakable. Whether it was to his brother, his friends, or his crew, he stood solid. Jail was supposed to break him, supposed to scare him straight. But when Charlie looked back, he admitted the wildest part. What scared him most was that it didn't scare him at all. He didn't fold, didn't hide. If anything, jail was where another side of him came alive. Behind bars, Charlie discovered the comedian inside him. He started cracking jokes, making other inmates laugh, even reciting poems about the people around him. Donald Rawlings later pointed out, Charlie had never stepped on a stage in his life, but inside that tense county lockup with nothing but time, Charlie Murphy found his voice. But don't get it twisted. He wasn't just joking his way through hard time. Those months gave him the edge people would feel every time he walked into a room later in life.
Well, Neil Brennan tells this story, the co-creator of the Chappelle Show. He tells this story about you, that there was an actual situation where you grabbed a Tech 9 off a dresser and you were going to deal with a situation of some sort.
This was a man who had survived both the streets and jail without letting either break him. And once you've walked through that kind of fire, you carry it everywhere you go. The day Charlie walked out of Nassau County Jail, he didn't waste a second. No hanging back, no slipping into the same patterns. He went straight to a Navy recruiter's office. It was 1978, and Charlie was just 18 years old. Later, he said, "That's when I became a man." In the military, the reason you take the right path is because they eliminate the other choices. I needed that. They set me straight. Those words showed it clear. Charlie knew he needed structure. After losing his father young, growing up with gang ties, and carrying the weight of protecting Eddie, the streets were always waiting for him. But the Navy gave him what the streets couldn't: discipline. Now, don't get it twisted. Discipline didn't soften him. If anything, it made him sharper. The Navy gave Charlie routine and order, but it didn't kill the fire in him. It focused it. Put a kid like Charlie Murphy in a world where you have to wake up on time, follow orders, and handle pressure without cracking, and he thrived. After 6 years, Charlie walked out of the Navy even tougher than when he first went in. And that says a lot, because he was already hard as nails before he signed up.
Years, in fact, he used to be Eddie's bodyguard when Eddie was like right at the height of his stuff. But Charlie was like martial arts.
By the time he came back home, Eddie Murphy wasn't just Eddie anymore. He was Eddie Murphy the superstar. Saturday Night Live, blockbuster movies, sold-out stand-up tours. Eddie was everywhere. But with that level of fame came attention, some good, some dangerous, and that's where Charlie stepped in. He became part of Eddie's security team. Only now, instead of breaking up schoolyard fights, he was standing in Hollywood, making sure nothing happened to one of the biggest stars on the planet. Charlie later admitted it himself. "I was there for the person I loved." But the people around him didn't like it. Why? Because Charlie wasn't the type to play games. If he thought something was shady, he treated it like a threat. And a lot of folks in Eddie's circle weren't ready for that kind of energy. They weren't used to a man looking at them with eyes that had seen real violence, real danger, and real prison time.
I'm very protective of both of my younger brothers.
Right. So if I said something bad, you would jump on my...
Even though Charlie eventually walked away from the security role, because deep down, he knew he wasn't built to stand in the background. He never let go of the toughness that got him there. That straight-up street mentality followed him right into Hollywood. Chris Rock once told a story about Charlie showing up to an audition with a real gun, leaving people in shock. And Neil Brennan, co-creator of Chappelle's Show, shared another wild story. Charlie pulling out a Tech 9 to handle a problem. He was dead serious, ready to settle things the way he'd been conditioned on the streets. Eddie had to pull Charlie back more than once, reminding him, "This isn't a movie, this is real life." Charlie later admitted he let his emotions get the best of him, got heated, and almost made the worst move of his life. He didn't pull that trigger, thank God, but the fact that he even reached for it showed exactly where he came from and how fast his instincts kicked in when he felt disrespected or threatened.
I used to bully him, but I was like, "Yeah, you're so tough," but not with a microphone in your hand. And I bullied him so much that he finally went on stage.
Eventually, Charlie put the gun down for good and later said he was grateful he did. But by that time, he didn't even need a weapon to earn respect. His size, his presence, his deep voice, and his history already spoke volumes. Comedians, actors, rappers, everybody in his circle knew Charlie Murphy wasn't just a funny storyteller. He was a man who had really lived the kind of life they only rapped about or turned into movie scripts. Over time, Charlie recognized he had to evolve. He admitted that once, anger almost pushed him to a fatal mistake with that gun. After that, he made a conscious choice to let it go, to stop carrying. That was growth, a man who had stared over the edge and decided not to fall, and that shift set the stage for his moment in the spotlight. In 2003, Dave Chappelle and Neil Brennan called Charlie in and said, "Get him in here." That's when it all clicked. Charlie Murphy finally got his fame. What set him apart wasn't just the jokes. Plenty of people were funny. Charlie's stories hit different because they were real. He wasn't pretending to be a tough guy for the cameras. He had lived it.
He knew how to fight, for sure.
And he never
He knew martial arts, man.
He was big into it.
So when he sat down for Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories, it was pure lightning in a bottle. Take the legendary Rick James sketch. Overnight, it became one of the most quoted comedy skits in TV history. Rick James wasn't just a punchline. It turned into a full-blown cultural moment. But if you listen closely, Charlie wasn't just clowning. He was telling the truth about Rick crossing lines habitually. These weren't cooked-up Hollywood stories. Charlie had actually been in those rooms, throwing real punches at a superstar who didn't know when to quit. And he even teased there were countless more stories too wild to ever make it on TV. The Prince sketch proved Charlie wasn't making anything up. On paper, a random late-night basketball game with Prince and his crew sounded like pure exaggeration. But Eddie Murphy later confirmed every detail. Prince really did crush them on the court and then serve pancakes afterward. Even Prince himself co-signed the story, using Dave Chappelle's parody of him on one of his single covers. That's when it became clear these stories weren't just funny, they were cultural history. What made them hit harder than any sitcom or stand-up at the time was Charlie's delivery. His voice, his presence. It pulled people in because the danger was always there, even when the joke landed. That aura clung to him everywhere he went. And when Hollywood opened its doors after Chappelle's show, nobody saw Charlie as just Eddie Murphy's tag-along brother. They knew he had already lived a full, dangerous life before stepping into comedy. That's why comedians, actors, and rappers respected him differently. Charlie wasn't in Eddie's shadow. He was his own man, and people knew not to play with him. But when Chappelle's show ended in 2006, Charlie faced a crossroads. Donald Rawlings, one of his closest friends in the game, basically forced him toward stand-up. At first, Charlie wanted no part of it. Rawlings pushed him, saying, "You so tough in every other way, but not with a microphone in your hand." That's when Charlie's second act started, but it wasn't smooth sailing. He bombed, he struggled, and he even admitted it sent his career spinning for a while. Still, Charlie was never the type to run from a fight, and for him, the stage became just another battlefield. When Martin Lawrence dropped some advice, telling Charlie to treat stand-up like another kind of battle, Charlie listened. He put in the work, writing, rehearsing, and hitting stages night after night. Step by step, he carved out his own lane. Before long, he was on the road with the I'm Rich tour, sharing the stage with young talents like Bill Burr, back when Burr was still grinding his way up. Later, Charlie joined the Comedy Get Down tour, standing alongside legends like George Lopez, Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hewley, and Eddie Griffin. Charlie had gone from living in Eddie's shadow to standing shoulder to shoulder with comedy royalty. But even as the spotlight hit him, Charlie never lost that edge. He was still a martial artist, still someone nobody wanted to test. Fellow comedians told stories of being on tour, watching Charlie break down combat moves for UFC fighters like he was their coach, and no one doubted him, because with Charlie, everything he said came from real experience. Even while America laughed at his iconic sketches and stand-up sets, the shadows of his past never disappeared. Charlie Murphy wasn't just Eddie Murphy's brother, and he wasn't just a comedian. He was a man who walked through violence, loss, gangs, and prison, yet flipped all that pain into unforgettable comedy. And if you look close, even at the height of his fame, you could still see that fire in his eyes. Because once you've lived that kind of life, it never truly leaves you. So there you have it, the real story of Charlie Murphy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this video. And I'll see you on the next one.